Hello, ghouls and ghoulettes. Today we are going to be visiting a very unsafe and scary place. Welcome to Uncanny Valley. Why are we visiting Uncanny Valley, you ask? Well, because of this thing. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Generation Select's Beast Wars Transmutate. So anyway, let's just get right on into it by taking a look at the packaging. And like I said before, this looks exactly like the packaging that I looked at in my last review, the Generation Select Sandstorm. It just says Transmutate, the sticker is the same, all the brown box stuff is the same, as well as the opening flap which reveals the interior. The only difference is that this is now the plastic-free packaging, so honestly nothing much new to see here with this packaging. And the only accessory that is included with this figure is this blue bone piece, which goes on the end of the tail. It really is just a piece of the figure. I mean, the entire figure itself really is just a bunch of accessories, if you think about it. And this bone piece, traditionally, at least with the Paleo Trex fossilizer this is based on, just plugs right here on the back of the big shoulder, and that's just where you store that. But, obviously, this is not your typical fossilizer. And here is taking a look at Transmutate, also known as my sleep paralysis demon. And yeah, taking a close look at Transmutate, I actually don't mind this figure's color scheme. Like I said, it's a very unconventional fossilizer to have this nice bright blue and gold, but obviously that's how this character has always been colorized in the previous incarnations and in the Beast Wars series. But the main thing about this figure that I thought was really cool was the fact that they used a fossilizer for it. I like the idea of Transmutate's alternate mode. Like if Transmutate actually had an alternate mode, it would be a skeleton fossil of an animal, not an entire animal. It almost adds to the whole creepy factor of Transmutate when Transmutate was introduced in Beast Wars. I do like what alternate mode they did pick for this Transmutate, but ultimately I always keep it in its robot mode anyway. And again, loads of bony detail, not so much mechanical detail. I would have liked some extra mechanical detail, but again, it just adds to the creepiness factor of this character. But again, I just would have liked some subtle hints of mechanical detailing, kind of like some stuff that's under here a little bit. Also, this is just the standard Paleo Trex fossilizer form. This is how the figure comes packaged in the box, but there's a lot of fan creations as to how to transform Transmutate, and so I will show off mine in a minute. But first, I wanted to just go over this figure's articulation and such, because one of the biggest things about this figure is its head sculpt. The head sculpt is the biggest difference between the Paleo Trex figure and this release. Uncanniness and all, there is Transmutate's head, and as you've seen throughout the review, mine has a very loose hinge joint in the mouth, which allows for some screaming poses. And like I said, mine has a very loose hinge joint, so it ends up screaming unintentionally. And yeah, I like the way how it looks. I mean, obviously it's still kind of gross looking, but I still think it looks good for accuracy to animation. And again, this does add that little bit of mechanical detailing that I did want, like on the previous. As I said throughout the figure, it needed more mechanical detailing, so at least this head kind of makes up for that quota. And the red eyes and everything look perfectly fine, little bit of some paint on the head. And yeah, honestly, nothing much to really say here about the actual robot mode itself, because it is just a bony kind of look. Also, I just realized it's a good thing that I'm reviewing this figure because it's a spooky, scary skeleton for Halloween. Very nice. So basically, the main gimmick of this figure is that you can rip it apart to your heart's content. And then you're left with all of these pieces here on the ground, which allow you to completely customize the figure as well. And so there has been a lot of fan creations with the Transmutate parts, but I'm just going to show you my personal way how I display my Transmutate. I leave this bottom jaw part untabbed out of this for the little bit of ab crunch. This chest plate I leave turned upside down just to add to that little bit of difference so it doesn't look too much like Paleotrex. I take the dinosaur feet pieces and use them as the bony thin shoulders, and I fold the toes all the way back like this, so it leaves these pegs right here, these holes with the pegs right there, open. I use this part right here to kind of form that weird gun arm thing that Transmutate had. I position the hips like this, and I just leave these little T-Rex arms right there just to add that teeny bit of almost fleshy looking mechanical detail. I leave one leg normal looking, and then the other one I have positioned upside down, so it gives that weird backwards chicken leg look, like how Transmutate had that one weird kind of gimpy leg. With that ab crunch in play, it makes this open mouth look not as weird with it looking downward, so it does make it look that little bit better. And then the tail, I didn't really figure out a clever way how to do this, so I just peg it on right here on this as if it's some kind of like tail weapon or really long arm. And then I usually use it as like a third leg to help Transmutate stand up since it has the gimpy leg over here. So that kind of helps Transmutate stand in that regard with that third leg. Alright, so going over the articulation on my Transmutate, I moved the little T-Rex arms out of the way just so I can show it off here, but obviously there's the hinge joint like I mentioned in the robot mode. You can swivel the head right here. Previously mentioned ab crunch right there because of the untabbed T-Rex jaw. Shoulders can rotate a full 360, they can move up and down. Bicep swivel. Bend at the elbow, and then another bend right here, I guess. You get a swivel at the tail there. And then waist swivel. This part can also hinge and rotate and move all over the place. This part, the hip can hinge forward that far. They can kick back that far. They can move outward that far. Thigh swivel. Swivel right here, I guess, as well as a hinge joint and a hinge joint right there. And an ankle pivot, I guess. And then this one has a bend right there, a weird bend right there, and then this little ankle guard can move as well. So that's really it for my articulation on the Transmutate here. Man, I would really hate to be hearing the voice out of this thing right now. No. Here is Transmutate with the last figure I reviewed, the Transformers Generation Selects Sandstorm. And then here is Transmutate compared next to that original fossilizer Paleotrex. So anyway, that's really it for the comparison. And no, I am not going to be comparing Transmutate with the Wreck and Rule Collection's Spindle, the Spinosaurus fossilizer, because I never want to touch that thing again. Now let's convert Transmutate into her fossilizer T-Rex mode. And like I said before, I like the concept of Transmutate's alternate mode being a fossilizer T-Rex. Kind of makes the idea not seem as stupid, because again, something very uncanny that transforms into this seems appropriate because this is equally just as uncanny. Because, you know, it's a beast mode, but without all its flesh and everything. It's a very cool idea. Clever girl. All of that bone detail, like I said, carries over, only except it's a lot more prominent now because this quite literally is just a fossil. The skull actually is the best looking part here, and that head actually kind of goes with this smooth part actually pretty well. Even the mouth stays closed during this mode, so that's very nice. And again, the colors here are really ridiculous, but I mean, it just looks a lot more like a toy. But I honestly don't mind it. It actually doesn't look as bad as I thought it would. The T-Rex does still have a lot of posability. The head here can shift, the jaw can open and close. This part on the top can shift. Little ball joints here at the T-Rex arms. The hips are all over the place with all this posability. And they got a bend here and a bend here. And then they do also swivel at the ankle. Toe bend, up and down. And then all that kind of stuff. And then the tail can hinge up, down. If you rotate it, it can then move from side to side. and then it can swivel. It can also swivel right here and swivel right there. So that is really it for the T-Rex mode. It just gets a little fiddly to stand it up, but it is nowhere close to being as spindle. And here is the Generation Selects Transmutate compared next to my last Generation Selects / Transformers review, the Generation Selects Sans. And then here is Transmutate compared next to the Fossilizer Paleotrex. So anyway, that's it for comparisons. And that is basically it for my review on the Transformers Generation Selects Transmutate. And honestly, it's not that bad of a figure, because I did like the original Fossilizer Paleotrex, and the Transmutate is not a bad figure, but the thing is, it's not really for everybody, because it is based on such an obscure, really weird character from Beast Wars, and I understand that not everyone was a fan of Beast Wars, and not everyone is a fan of the animation, so this figure isn't really for everyone.
For anyone who thinks Beast Wars is dumb, you're wrong.
But I do appreciate the retooled head, and I think the colors work for it very well. So yeah, if I had to give this figure a rating, I give it a solid 7 out of 10. My only real complaint is that the hinge joint in the head is a little bit loose, and it tends to scream when I don't want it to, but that's all I really have to say about it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a like on the video, comment down below what you guys think about these Halloween-themed spooky reviews, and I'll catch you guys next time.
When a spark goes online, there's great joy. When one's extinguished, the universe weeps.